Okay, here we are. This is drawing a 1963 Corvette, lesson number 11. And first of all, I got to tell you, I live in Southern California, like the earthquake capital of North America. And as it happened, we haven't had a fair-sized earthquake in a while. And at about 8 o'clock tonight, while I was getting ready to prepare this lesson and post it, we had a one they're reporting now is 5.3 magnitude, which they call a moderate earthquake. Didn't do anything to our house. It just moved it around, but it lasted for about 20 or 30 seconds. It was pretty interesting. Kind of felt like a ship rolling around. It was pretty weird. Anyway, okay, back to the lesson. As you can see, what I was doing today was darkening up the deck like I said it would, and also working on the lower part of the body on the left-hand side below the belt line, because that has to be darker. It's really in shadow compared to the upper part of the fenders and all. It's somewhat darker, so I'm darkening that up, and may still not be as dark as it's going to be in the final version, but I had to make it darker than the top so that I can keep the right value relationship between the top and the side. So that's what I'm doing right now, is trying to make that work. And you'll also notice that on the rear deck, I did a lot of that work off camera today because I didn't want to make this a 40-minute lesson squeezed down to 10 minutes. So instead, I just made it a 5-minute lesson, something like that, 5:43, I guess, total. And I'm getting closer to working all these values out. Tomorrow, we're going to try to finish up the rear deck and the top, and then there won't be that much to do. Then all we have to do is do the wheels and my final cleanup, and then we'll be able to call this one good. But there are going to be a couple lessons more, I know, at least. So like I say, we're going to try and do the whole deck and top of the car tomorrow, and then as long as we get that done in time, then we'll start to do some of the other little trim work on it. There's going to be one lesson that's going to be probably used for the grill, or for the for the bumpers and for the other trim elements that are on the car, and those will have to be worked over too. But you can see it is starting to take shape, and it's starting to look like a Corvette finally. I didn't think it would take this long, but there are a lot of elements in this car, and there's a lot of surface area, so I wanted to be sure that I don't go too far in anything and make it too dark. So I'm sneaking up on all the values like I always do, or like I always try to do anyway. I have screwed up in the past on a couple occasions and had to really make something pretty dark after that, but I don't like to do that very much. I like to remain pretty true to the photograph that I'm using, and that is not of a black car. It's a dark car, but it's not black, so I don't want to make this car black. I want to make sure that it looks fairly close to what the photograph is, which also gives me some references of how the lighting went and where the highlights are and all of that, and the relative values of the highlights to the darkest areas. So if I can maintain the color, then I'm a lot better off. Than I have something to use. Otherwise, I'm kind of lost, and I have to make this up as I go along. So it's really much better if I stick to something close to what the photograph is. But so far, that's coming along just great. And there we are, working toward the front too. There's a little bit of darkening to do just over the wheel wells. As you can see, there's a little ambient light, and it's a little bit lighter over the tires and wheels than it is behind it. So I left that in. It's pretty subtle, but it's important because it does show that there's light that's scattered around, and that light is showing up in certain places and reflecting back to the viewers. So these are the kind of things that you do. I mean, you just look and see what you have on the photograph, whether you took it or somebody else took it. You have to make sure that you see how it works and where the light and dark places are, and that's what makes this believable as a solid object, and not just one-dimensional thing. It's not actually two-dimensional, of course, length and width, but it gives it some feeling of roundness and depth if you actually do those little things that show up, that tell you that it is a real object that was photographed. Anyway, getting pretty close down here now today, but tomorrow, like I say, we're going to do a lot on this, and with any luck we'll finish the upper body, and then we'll concentrate on the wheels, which is probably a couple more, and the chrome trim after that, and then we'll figure it out. See you tomorrow.